Welcome to the Deep Dive Library, your go-to podcast for real talks on entrepreneurship, finance, and personal growth. No fluff, just bold insights to help you grow, build, and lead. Let's dive in to building resilience, overcoming setbacks, and thriving.
Yeah, resilience. It's a big one.
Definitely. We're looking into, what really works for building resilience after failure. How do you actually stay motivated when things get rough?
And that mindset piece, right?
Yeah.
How much does that play a role in getting through challenges?
Exactly. And how do successful people seem to bounce back? Can you even learn resilience? And if you can, how?
Questions.
So today, we're unpacking a whole collection of ideas on building that crucial ability, not just to survive tough times, but maybe even come out stronger.
Okay, so maybe we should start with what is resilience? What are we actually talking about here?
Good point.
Think of it less as being totally bulletproof to hardship and more like your internal shock absorber. It's that capacity to, take a hit, but then get back on your feet and keep moving. Mm-hmm. It's really about how we navigate those tough times that, let's face it, are pretty unavoidable.
Totally unavoidable. And to make it more concrete, maybe think about two different ways someone might react.
Okay.
Imagine someone faces a major setback. Could be a business going under, maybe a really tough personal loss.
Right.
So one way to react, let's call it path A, is just withdrawal.
Okay, yeah.
Isolating yourself, maybe getting stuck, blaming yourself, just feeling completely bogged down by it.
Been there. Okay, so what's path B?
Path B is different. Same kind of adversity, but instead of pulling back, this person actively reaches out, seeks support.
Oh.
They start adapting. Maybe they look at the business failure and think, okay, what can I learn here?
Sure.
Or after the personal loss, they, try new things, reconnect with people.
So the key difference is that active response, that flexibility.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It really shows the power of how we choose to respond, doesn't it?
It really does.
And speaking of responding proactively, Gilles Baudet, his work offers some really practical strategies for, keeping your motivation up when you hit those headwinds.
Okay, like what?
Well, he really stresses knowing your deep why.
Ah, the why. Yeah, that comes up a lot.
It's more than just saying, this is my goal. It's tapping into those, fundamental reasons driving you.
Right, it's like your anchor. When things get rocky externally, that strong why keeps you pointed in the right direction. Reminds you why you're even bothering,
And Baudet also talks about just taking consistent action.
Even small steps.
Yeah, exactly. Even tiny steps. They build momentum, and that momentum itself can actually fuel motivation.
That makes sense. It's easy to feel totally stuck when things are hard, so just doing something.
Right, just one manageable thing. And building on that, he mentions tracking your progress, actually noticing the small wins.
Celebrating those little victories. Yeah, I can see how that would help keep you encouraged when the big picture feels overwhelming.
Definitely. And he also hammers home something really basic but crucial: your well-being.
Physical and mental health.
Yep. They're not optional extras. They're literally the foundation for your ability to be resilient.
Absolutely. You can't really bounce back effectively if you're running on empty, can you?
No way.
Baudet also suggests looking outwards, right? Seeking inspiration from how others have navigated their challenges.
Yeah, learning from other people's journeys.
Yeah.
It can give you ideas, but also just, a bit of hope.
And gratitude comes in too.
It does. He talks about intentionally focusing on what you do have, even when things are difficult. Helps maintain perspective.
That's a powerful reframe.
And an interesting one he makes is about helping other people.
Really? How does that work?
Apparently, shifting your focus off your own problems and contributing to someone else can be surprisingly motivating.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Kind of counterintuitive, but I can see it.
And finally, just staying curious, embracing learning, being open to new possibilities that can reveal unexpected ways forward.
What's cool is how all these different pieces fit together. It's not just one magic bullet. It's like a whole system for keeping yourself going. Addresses your actions, your mindset, your health, your connections.
He really does. And speaking of mindset, that's like the bedrock for all of this, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Carol Dweck's work here is just so central.
Oh yeah, fixed versus growth mindset. Huge.
Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. So a fixed mindset is basically believing your core abilities, intelligence, talent are just fixed traits. You've got a certain amount and that's that.
Right. Set in stone.
Exactly. Whereas a growth mindset is the belief that your abilities can be developed through dedication, hard work, learning.
And that difference, it changes how you approach everything.
Totally. If you're in that fixed mindset, you might avoid challenges because, well, failing feels like proof that you're just not good enough.
Oof.
You might give up faster, see effort as kind of pointless, like if you have to try hard, you mustn't be naturally good at it. You might ignore feedback, feel threatened by other people's success. It's very defensive, really.
It sounds exhausting, actually, like constantly trying to protect this image of yourself.
It can be, but the growth mindset flips that. Challenges become opportunities to learn, obstacles are things to overcome.
Effort is seen as the way to get better.
Precisely. Criticism is useful information, not a personal attack. And other people's success can actually be inspiring, not threatening.
So how do we actually build that growth mindset, that resilience? There's a guide, Becoming More Resilient, that has some practical steps.
Yeah, and a big part of it is prioritizing daily self-care.
Which isn't just bubble baths, right?
Definitely not. It's about having routines that actively manage stress, things like relaxation exercises, maybe meditation, and also just consciously looking at your habits. Are they helping or hurting your well-being?
Building that buffer, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
So it's proactive.
Exactly. And it's not just about managing stress that's already there. It's about moving forward, too. The guide talks about setting goals after a setback.
Even small ones.
Especially small ones sometimes, just to get that sense of direction back. They even offer templates for planning them out.
And a checklist to stay on track.
Yeah, a daily resilience checklist.
Yeah.
To keep these practices top of mind, it's about shifting from just reacting to stress to actively building that inner strength.
Okay, so self-care, goals, what else?
A big one is developing emotional awareness.
Understanding your own feelings.
Yeah, being able to actually identify what you're feeling and doing it without judging yourself for feeling that way. That awareness is kind of the first step to managing your emotions effectively.
Right, you can't manage what you don't recognize.
Exactly. And once you have that awareness, you can start using emotion regulation strategies.
Like what? Deep breathing.
Yeah. Deep breathing is a classic for calming your nervous system. Mindfulness helps you stay present instead of getting swept away. Cognitive reframing, changing those negative thought patterns. We can talk more about that.
Okay.
And crucially, reaching out for social support when you need it. Plus, impulse control. You know, hitting pause before you react emotionally.
That pause is powerful.
It is. And then there's emotional flexibility, being able to adapt how you respond emotionally depending on the situation, not just being stuck in one gear.
That sounds advanced.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
The guide also suggests noticing the link between physical sensations and emotions, like where do you feel stress in your body? That can be useful info.
Interesting.
And regularly checking in. Are your daily actions actually aligned with your bigger life goals? That sense of purpose really fuels resilience. And importantly, it says it's okay to seek professional help. Therapy isn't a weakness, it's a tool.
That's a really important point. Normalizing getting help.
Absolutely.
And the guide also mentions things like mindfulness practices, like mindful breathing or walking.
Yeah, those simple practices help you cultivate that being in the moment awareness. And that can really cut down on those automatic negative reactions that just sabotage resilience, you know?
It's like training your brain to be less reactive.
Exactly. These consistent, sometimes small practices can literally rewire our brains over time, make us more grounded when things get chaotic.
Okay, so shifting gears slightly, there's research highlighted in Building Resilience in Times of Crisis that talks about the mindset of resilience. What does that look like?
A few key things stand out. First, a really staunch, almost radical acceptance of reality.
Seeing things exactly as they are, warts and all.
Pretty much, no sugarcoating, no denial, because you can't effectively deal with something you refuse to acknowledge, right? That acceptance is step one for taking action.
Makes sense. Painful, maybe, but necessary.
Right. And second, a deep belief that life has meaning. This is often tied to strong personal values. That sense of purpose acts like an anchor when everything feels like it's swirling around you.
And part of that is allowing yourself and others to actually feel the tough emotions, not just bottling them up.
Yes, exactly. Trying to suppress feelings like grief or fear can actually get in the way of healing and moving forward. Feeling them is part of the process.
Okay, what else makes up this resilient mindset?
A really uncanny ability to improvise.
Adapt on the fly. Find workarounds.
Yeah, creativity and resourcefulness when the original plan goes out the window, which, let's be honest, happens a lot.
True.
And they also talk about a change leader mindset, which involves things like courage, curiosity, agility, and Grit.
Grit again. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So these are the traits that help people not just get through a crisis, but maybe even learn from it.
Precisely. Evolve through it.
Yeah.
And this all connects back to that amazing idea of brain plasticity.
Our brains can change, even as adults.
Absolutely. We can literally form new neural connections throughout our lives, which means we can intentionally reshape our thinking patterns. We can choose to adopt more resilient beliefs and practice resilience-building habits.
So it's not just something you're born with. You can actively cultivate it.
Exactly. Developing resilience is about shaping those beliefs, the mindset, which drives the behaviors, the practices, which ultimately builds that capacity to handle whatever life throws at you.
Okay, so let's talk about grit then. Angela Duckworth's work comes up here. That blend of passion and perseverance for long-term goals.
Yeah, her research really underscores how crucial sustained effort is, maybe even more critical than raw talent, you know?
We tend to glorify talent, though, don't we?
We do. She talks about the naturalness bias, this hidden preference we have for people who seem effortlessly brilliant over those who clearly achieve through sheer hard work.
I can see that.
But think about her own story switching from teaching to psychology research, or Bob Mankoff, the cartoonist, who just kept submitting cartoons for years despite getting rejected constantly. That's effort and passion in action.
Amazing persistence. And optimism seems linked to this, too.
Definitely. Optimists tend to handle setbacks better. They're more likely to see them as temporary, specific, and something they can influence. It's about how you interpret the challenge.
Which sounds a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
It's very related. CBT basically says it's not the event itself, but your interpretation of the event that drives your feelings and actions.
So learning to catch and change that negative self-talk is key.
Absolutely fundamental for resilience, challenging those automatic negative thoughts.
And what about that old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? Is that actually true?
Well, it's nuanced. Duckworth and others suggest it's not just enduring the suffering, it's finding a way out of the suffering, learning from it, actively overcoming it. That's what builds strength.
Okay. So it's the active process of overcoming, not just the hardship itself.
Exactly. Just going through something tough doesn't automatically make you stronger. It's what you do with it, the lessons you pull from it.
Right. Now, here's a really interesting angle. The connection between childhood adversity and being resilient as an entrepreneur later on.
Oh yeah, that's complex stuff.
Okay.
Research shows that while facing tough times early in life can obviously lead to negative outcomes.
Sure.
Some entrepreneurs who had really difficult childhoods end up being remarkably successful and resilient.
How does that work? Is it like they're just tougher?
It's maybe more complicated. There are ideas like the underdog framework or the stress inoculation model. They suggest maybe a moderate level of adversity, if you develop resilience alongside it, might actually be linked to greater success later, especially in something demanding like entrepreneurship.
Like building up psychological calluses almost.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Facing challenges you can overcome might build a certain hardiness, and resilience defined here as like keeping your psychological well-being high despite ongoing stress seems absolutely critical.
It mediates the relationship.
Exactly. And interestingly, some research suggests resilience might be even more important for entrepreneurs who aren't like at the absolute peak of success. It acts as a vital buffer for them.
So resilience helps people navigate the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, especially if they started out facing headwinds.
Yeah, it really highlights that how we respond to adversity often matters more than the adversity itself.
Which brings us back full circle, really. The big takeaway seems to be that our mindset, our resilience, it's not fixed.
Not at all. That's the hopeful message from Dweck and others. We can change our mindsets. It starts with awareness.
Recognizing when that fixed mindset kicks in.
Yeah, noticing your triggers. What situations tend to bring out that voice that says you can't do this or you'll look stupid if you try? Dweck calls it the fixed mindset persona.
That inner critic.
Right, and once you recognize it, you can start to challenge it. Talk back to it with a growth mindset perspective.
So instead of, I failed, it's, okay, that approach didn't work. What can I try next?
Exactly. Reframing it as a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And how we praise matters too, right? Both ourselves and others.
Praising effort over just talent.
Yes. Focusing on the process, the learning, the hard work, the strategies used. That fosters a growth mindset much more effectively than just saying, wow, you're so smart. That can actually backfire and make people afraid to try hard things later.
Fascinating. Okay, so wrapping this all up. What's the bottom line for someone listening?
I think the main thing is that building resilience isn't passive. You don't just wait for it to happen.
It's an active process.
Yeah, it's about actively choosing the right mindset, deliberately using these practical strategies we talked about, and really trying to learn from every experience, especially the tough ones.
Whether you're dealing with business ups and downs, personal growth stuff, money challenges,
Yeah.
your ability to bounce back and even thrive is something you can actually influence. It's within your control.
Definitely. So, maybe something to think about. Consider a recent setback you faced. How did you initially react? Like, gut reaction? No. Thinking about everything we've discussed. What's maybe one small shift? Could be in your thinking, could be a practical step. What's one thing you could do differently next time to face a similar challenge with a bit more resilience?
That's a great reflection question. And hey, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's learn from each other, build a community around this. And definitely share this deep dive if you know someone who could use these insights.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. And look, if you found value here, but you haven't subscribed yet, seriously, why wait? Every single subscriber helps us keep making this kind of real game-changing content that you need. So hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe. And now don't miss out on the next deep dive that could change everything for you.